Alright, so this might sound weird right off the bat, but hear me out. Last week I had this moment where I realized, really realized, that I'm not a lion. I mean, obviously I'm not, right? I'm a guy sitting behind a desk most days, drinking too much coffee and doom-scrolling Reddit when I should be working. But it hit me in a way I didn't expect. See, lions don't explain themselves. Lions don't ask for permission. They take what's theirs, they roar, and everyone else just falls in line or gets out of the way. That's power, plain and simple. And here I am, this guy who thought he had things under control, until life, and a couple of people I trusted, reminded me that I'm not a lion. I'm something a lot more breakable. It started with what seemed like an ordinary day. Coffee was burned at the office, printer was jammed, my boss was in one of his send 12 emails before 9 a.m. moods. Just the usual corporate grind. But then came the text. Her text. And that's when everything tilted. I remember staring at my phone, thinking it was some kind of sick joke. Just 7 words. We need to talk. I'm sorry. You know how your stomach just falls through the floor when you read something like that? Like gravity just decided you're the only person in the room it wants to mess with? Yeah, that. That's when I realized. Lions don't get, we need to talk, texts. I froze. Literally just sat there with my phone in my hand, blinking at those words. We need to talk. I'm sorry. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everybody knows that text. It's the prelude to something messy, like the opening chords to a song you already hate but can't get out of your head. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, though. I told myself maybe she lost her job. Maybe something happened with her family. Maybe anything else. But in the pit of my stomach, I already knew. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I texted back. Talk about what? Are you okay? No answer. The rest of the workday was a blur. I swear I must have stared at my screen for 3 hours, pretending to type, but not a single word stuck. Coworkers walked past my desk, and I gave that fake little smile you give when you don't want anyone to ask questions. Inside, though, my chest was tight, my brain was on fire, and every possible worst-case scenario kept running laps in my head. By the time I left the office, I wasn't just nervous, I was angry. Angry that she'd drop a grenade like that, and then disappear. Angry that I was the one sitting in silence while she held the answers. That's when the lion thought hit me again. A lion would have demanded answers. A lion wouldn't sit in his Toyota Corolla in a parking garage with his hands shaking on the steering wheel, waiting for a message. But me? I just sat there and waited. She finally called me that night, around 10:30, when I'd already changed into sweatpants and was halfway through pacing a groove in my apartment carpet. The ringtone hit me like a punch. I fumbled the phone, dropped it, picked it up with sweaty hands. Her voice was soft. Too soft. Hey, can I come over? I should have said no. I should have said, no. If you've got something to tell me, just spit it out now. But of course I didn't. I told her yes. My voice cracked when I said it, too, like some desperate teenager waiting on prom night. When she showed up, she looked different. Not in a huge, dramatic way, but in those little details you only notice when you know someone inside and out. Hair was tied back like she hadn't cared enough to do much with it. No makeup, hoodie and jeans. Her eyes didn't meet mine when she walked in. She sat down on the couch, pulled her sleeves over her hands, and just stared at the floor. I swear, that silence stretched for minutes. My chest was burning. I wanted to scream at her to say something. Finally, she whispered, I made a mistake. That was it. 3 words. My heart went from fear to rage in about half a second. A mistake? Like she'd left the milk out? Like she'd forgotten to lock the door? I asked her what she meant. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was this low, shaking growl. She still didn't look at me. Just said, I've been seeing someone. And that was it. My world cracked right down the middle. When she said it, the words didn't even sound real. I've been seeing someone. My ears rang, like I'd just been standing too close to an explosion. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, waiting for her to laugh and say it was some kind of cruel, messed up joke. But she didn't. She just sat there, chewing on her sleeve like a scared kid. Who? That was the only word I managed to push out. My voice cracked so hard it almost didn't sound like me. She finally looked at me. And God, I almost wish she hadn't. Her eyes were full of tears, but there was something else too. Guilt. Yeah, but also resignation. like she'd already rehearsed this conversation 100 times. It's someone you know. Those words hit harder than the first blow. My stomach twisted. My brain started cycling through names, friends, co-workers, neighbors, even family. Each possibility felt worse than the last. I pressed again, sharper this time. Who? She swallowed hard, and her lip trembled. And then she said it. It was my closest friend. The guy I'd known since college. The guy who was basically like a brother to me. I swear, in that moment, I understood why people describe rage as seeing red. My whole vision blurred. I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. I wanted to grab my keys and drive straight to his place. But instead, I just sat there, shaking, feeling like the ground had given out underneath me. Because lions don't get betrayed by their own pack. But men apparently do. I couldn't speak for a long time. My throat was dry, my hands were trembling, and every muscle in my body felt like it was on fire. Finally, I managed to get the words out, but they didn't sound like me. They were sharp, jagged, like shards of glass scraping together. Get out. She froze. I don't think she expected me to be able to speak at all. But I didn't wait for her to argue or cry or try to explain. I pointed toward the door, and she shuffled out, dragging her hoodie sleeves over her hands like she was trying to disappear. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, sliding down to the floor. That's when the anger really hit me. Not just the betrayal itself, but the way it had been hidden from me. The sneaky little lies, the texts I didn't see, the secret meetings. All the times I'd trusted both of them. All the times I'd been there for him, laughed with him, celebrated his victories. And meanwhile I wanted revenge. I wanted to call him, scream at him, throw things. I wanted to roar like a lion and show them both that I wasn't someone you could betray without consequence. But I didn't. I sat there, silent, because I realized something ugly. I didn't know if I could trust myself in that moment. I didn't know if I could control what I'd do. Instead, I grabbed a notebook. I wrote every feeling, every memory, every bit of rage. It was messy, incoherent, but it helped. And slowly, between the shaking and the scribbling, I realized that I had a decision to make. Do I burn everything down, or do I figure out how to survive this without losing myself completely? I didn't reach out to him right away. I sat on that couch for what felt like hours, staring at the wall, thinking about every single time I'd laughed with him, every secret I'd shared, every late-night conversation we'd had. And suddenly, it all felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I kept asking myself the same questions. Why him? Why now? Why me? My brain wouldn't stop running in circles, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't recognize myself anymore. The guy I thought was calm, rational, and patient felt like a stranger sitting on my own couch. At some point, I started pacing. I walked back and forth like a caged animal, thinking about confrontation. Part of me wanted to call him, shout, throw him against the wall, make him explain himself. Another part, the part that's still half human, half coward, told me to wait, to think, to survive. I realized that unlike a lion, I couldn't just tear things apart and move on. Lions act, men we stew. We overthink. We hope people will come to their senses. And that was my first hard truth. I wasn't a lion. I was messy, fragile, capable of love, rage, and despair all at once. By the time I fell asleep that night, my anger had softened into something heavier, something like grief. And I knew that tomorrow, I'd have to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. Not the one consumed by rage, but the one who could take the hit and still stand. The next morning, I went to work like a ghost. My coworkers waved, asked how I was doing, and I gave that same fake little smile I'd perfected the night before. Coffee in hand, I sat at my desk, trying to focus, but my mind kept circling back to them. Her, him, the way they'd betrayed me without a second thought. And then it happened. My phone buzzed. Not a text, not a call, a photo. Him, laughing, with her, together, at the bar we used to go to as a trio. The one place I thought was sacred. I dropped my coffee. It shattered across the floor, a sound so loud it made everyone jump. My face burned. I wanted to roar. I wanted to smash everything in sight. And then I realized something even worse. I was powerless. I couldn't do anything to change what had happened. So I cleaned the mess. Slowly, methodically. Like I was trying to convince myself that putting the pieces of broken ceramic back together might somehow fix the pieces of my life. It was in that moment, standing in coffee-stained office carpet, that I understood the full weight of the betrayal. Lions fight back instantly. They take what's theirs without hesitation. Me? I was learning the hard way that sometimes men don't roar, they survive. And surviving means making decisions even when your heart is shattered. By the time evening rolled around, I couldn't sit still any longer. My mind was a storm of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I knew I had to confront him, even if it terrified me. But as I drove to his apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles were white, I realized something. I didn't just want answers. I wanted to see if the person I thought I knew even existed anymore. I knocked. He opened the door with that same clueless grin he always had, completely unaware of the emotional bomb about to drop on him. "Hey man, what's up?" he said, stepping aside. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared. My chest was tight, my stomach a knot. Finally, I blurted out, "You've been seeing her." His smile faltered. He glanced behind him, realized she wasn't there, and his expression shifted to confusion. "What are you talking about?" Every nerve in my body screamed. "Don't lie to me. Don't you dare." "I know. I saw the photo. I know everything." He swallowed. His eyes darted around like he was looking for an escape route. And in that moment, I understood something vital. He had no real defense. Lions might fight to defend their pride, but men? Men stumble, fumble, and falter when confronted with the truth of their own betrayal. And as I stood there, shaking but trying to keep my voice steady, I realized this confrontation wasn't about anger anymore. It was about reclaiming a piece of myself that had been stolen. The argument erupted almost instantly. Words I didn't even know I had inside me spilled out. Accusations, anger, heartbreak, betrayal, all wrapped up in a voice that cracked and shook. He tried to defend himself, fumbling with excuses and apologies, but every word sounded hollow. I wasn't even really listening anymore. I was just furious. "You knew how much she meant to me, how much we meant to each other," I yelled, pacing the small living room like a caged animal. "I didn't," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't. Just don't. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. And this is what I get." His face paled. I saw guilt, yes, but also fear, like he finally realized that some wounds aren't easily fixed. Then something strange happened. In the middle of my yelling, my voice cracked and the anger bled into something else. Pain. Raw, gut-wrenching pain. I sank onto the couch, running my hands through my hair, trying to steady my shaking body. It was the first time I admitted, even to myself, that I had been broken, not just betrayed, but utterly shattered. And that's when I understood the final truth. A lion might roar and fight, but a man can hurt, can grieve, and still find the strength to walk away. I walked out of his apartment that night feeling hollow. Every step felt heavy, like my shoes were filled with lead. I hadn't expected closure. I hadn't expected understanding. All I had was the bitter taste of betrayal and a mind spinning with what now. But then, something unexpected happened. As I was about to get into my car, I heard him call my name. I turned. He looked different, vulnerable, almost human in a way I hadn't noticed before. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I messed up. I didn't mean to." I cut him off. "Save it. I don't need your excuses. I just need to figure out how to live with this." He nodded, not fully understanding, and I realized that sometimes the hardest part isn't the betrayal itself. It's accepting that people, friends, lovers, everyone, are flawed, selfish, and human. Lions don't have this problem. Lions don't second-guess, don't hurt like this. Men do. And right now, I had to figure out how to be a man who could survive this without losing himself entirely. I drove home in silence. The streets were empty, the night air cool, and for the first time since I'd seen that photo, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't expected. Calm. Not happiness, not forgiveness, but calm. The next few days were weirdly quiet. Too quiet. I went to work, tried to focus, pretended everything was normal, but every little thing reminded me of them. A joke he used to make, a song she liked, even the coffee shop we used to go to together. It was like the world was holding up mirrors, reflecting back the pieces of my life that had been shattered. Then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. I ran into her at the grocery store. Not a casual hello. This was full on. You ruined my life, and now you're in my aisle, eye contact. My stomach dropped. I wanted to yell, to storm off, to do any of the dramatic things that felt satisfying in movies. But I didn't. I nodded slightly, forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes, and kept walking. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. And in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need him groveling. What I needed was to reclaim control over myself. It hit me that the betrayal, as painful as it was, didn't have to define me. I could choose my next steps. I could decide who I let in, how I spent my time, and how I healed. I couldn't roar like a lion, but maybe I could survive like a man. By the end of that week, I knew I had to make some concrete decisions. Sitting in my apartment one night, staring at the ceiling, I made a list, simple, brutal, honest. Step 1, cut contact. No texts, no calls, no accidental meetings. I blocked her, blocked him, deleted their numbers. It felt cruel, but I realized survival sometimes requires cruelty to yourself and others. Step 2, focus on myself. I signed up for a new gym class I'd been putting off, dusted off my guitar, and even started writing again. Not angry writing, not revenge writing, just me writing. Little by little, reclaiming space in my own life felt like taking back a piece of my soul that had been stolen. Step 3, decide my boundaries. I thought about friendships, relationships, trust. I knew I couldn't go back to how things were before, but I also knew I didn't want to become bitter or cold. I wanted to stay human, flawed but alive, capable of loving and trusting again, cautiously. Making these decisions didn't erase the pain. It didn't erase the betrayal. But it gave me something lions never get: reflection, choice, and, slowly, the feeling that maybe being human, messy, hurt, angry, but still capable of growth, wasn't so bad after all. Just as I was starting to feel a tiny bit of balance returning, life threw another curveball. Out of nowhere, I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, a former coworker who somehow got wind of the whole situation. She didn't sugarcoat it. She told me what everyone had been whispering, that my friend and she had been bragging about it behind my back. At first, my stomach dropped again. The betrayal stung fresh all over. But then something remarkable happened. I laughed. Not a sarcastic laugh, not a ha-ha I'm fine laugh, but a real, full-bodied laugh. I realized I didn't care anymore. Not really. The anger was still there, sure, but it had changed shape. It was no longer a living, breathing monster that consumed me. It was a teacher, showing me who I was, what I valued, and how I wanted to live. I even sent that coworker a simple message. Thanks for telling me, but I'm moving on. And I meant it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a little bit lighter, like I had just unclenched my fists after holding onto rocks too heavy to carry. The following week felt different. I went through my routines, ran errands, went to work, but something had shifted. I wasn't constantly scanning for reminders of betrayal. I wasn't plotting revenge in my head. Instead, I noticed small things. The way sunlight hit my apartment in the morning, the quiet hum of the city streets, even the smell of coffee that wasn't burnt. I started reconnecting with other friends, ones I hadn't realized I'd neglected while being caught up in the drama. I laughed again, genuinely, not like I was faking it to convince myself I was okay. And I started thinking about the future in a way I hadn't allowed myself to in weeks. The final test, though, came unexpectedly. I ran into him again, my former friend. I could have let old instincts take over, yell, confront, rehash everything. But I didn't. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt neutral, calm. I nodded slightly, he nodded back, and we walked past each other. No drama, no chaos, just the quiet acknowledgement that the past was over, and I was still standing. It wasn't a roar like a lion's. It wasn't dominance or power, but it was mine. And somehow, that felt stronger than anything I'd felt in months. Sitting here now, reflecting on everything, I realized just how different I am from a lion, and how different a lion's life is from mine. Lions fight, dominate, and live by instinct. I survived heartbreak, betrayal, and the chaos of human relationships by feeling everything, by thinking, by choosing slowly and painfully what mattered most. What I learned is simple but hard. Life isn't about roaring or proving yourself to anyone. It's about reclaiming yourself after the pieces are scattered, about deciding how to carry your pain without letting it define you. Betrayal will happen, anger will come, grief will hit hard, but the true measure of strength is in how you rise after it. So here's my advice to anyone who's been through something similar. Let yourself feel. Don't act on raw emotion. Take control of the things you can control, your choices, your boundaries, your growth. And remember, being human is messy, painful, and sometimes humiliating. But surviving, really surviving, and coming out the other side with a little peace, that's power. That's something a lion doesn't get to experience. And honestly, I'd rather be a human who knows how to heal than a lion who only knows how to fight.